trying to work it out. So hope you all are safe and well. I am David Thompson. I'm a assistant professor in the history department, wearing a slightly different hat today as the faculty fellow for internationalization in a second year of that rotation. And today we are in fact talking about the Fulbright program. And this is somewhat building off of an event we had back in May, in which we had somebody come in from the actual Fulbright program itself, from the Department of State, to talk about it a little bit and kind of go through, as Patty said, really the weeds of it, and kind of getting into a lot of the details of what that involves for students who want to apply, because there are two tracks for the Fulbright program: students, which we're talking about today, and then faculty as well. Faculty have the option as faculty to go out and pursue a Fulbright, although we do have some faculty here who were Fulbrighters when they were students, not to confuse you, all right? But just want to kind of lay that out for you. So what is the Fulbright program? Just very briefly, program initiated by the State Department, passed by Congress in 1946 as this new program, sponsored by the Department of State through their Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, if we want to get real specific. And it is a system, as you can imagine, that has grown exponentially over the years. We know, Patty said we're not going to throw numbers at you. I'm going to throw just a couple numbers at you, okay? Nothing too crazy here. But in an average year, you're looking at student-wise, a little under 1,300 abroad in terms of English teaching assistantships, and then nearly 1,000 students going for study or research grants. So this is a program that you are all eligible for if you're US citizens, and it's something that I certainly hope that some of you will take advantage of. I know I'm happy to work with you moving forward. Also, Professor McLeod in computer science has a long history, as well as a rate of being successful, not only for students getting Fulbrights, but also himself. So just to give you a very, very brief overview of that, I'll throw my email into the chat as well, just in case anybody wants to reach out directly. I think if that's okay, Patty, I'll just transition right into kind of these introductions of some of our speakers.
Yeah.
Great. So we have quite an assemblage here today. I think we're very privileged that we have not only some alums of Sacred Heart, but also some current faculty and staff who are going to speak with you and their experiences as part of the Fulbright program. So introducing them here very briefly, we'll start with Brent Little. Professor Little is in the Catholic Studies Department here at Sacred Heart, started back in 2016 with me, which feels like ages ago. And for his year, Professor Little actually was in Bonn, Germany, where he studied at the Beethoven Archive. So Professor Little will be speaking with us. So thank you for being here. Welcome. Secondly, we've got Chris Minardi. Chris is a communications and project specialist at Avangrid. Did I say that right, Chris?
Avangrid, but very close. Everyone gets it wrong.
I'm trying.
It's your fault.
Yes, absolutely. Perhaps more importantly, right? What do you do? It's an energy company with holdings and utilities in the Northeast and renewables across the country. Chris is an alum of the program from 2015-16 when he was in Albania, where he helped to set up an online resource for teachers and produced a documentary highlighting a unique preschool in the capital city of Tirana there. While he was in Albania, Chris also constantly worked with groups such as the U.S. Embassy's Youth Council, and he traveled through the country keeping a photojournal of his experience. Currently, Chris lives in Connecticut with his wife and his cat, whom perhaps may grace us with their presence. Who knows?
She's been attacking me for the past 5 minutes. If you guys haven't noticed my squirming, so
okay, now we know what the squirming's all about. And also, just so you know, Chris also is an avid golfer, and as well as loves to backpack. With this weather, is certainly perfect for that if you were able to sneak away. Next, we have Annie Wendell. Annie is an assistant director in the Office of Volunteer Programs and Service Learning here at SHU, and coordinates local and global community-based initiatives for undergrads as well as graduate students. Annie graduated with her BA in public service from Providence College, and then spent, 9 months in Nepal as a Fulbright English teaching assistant. She holds a master's in education in community engagement from Merrimack College, and her current research is on global citizenship education. So welcome, Annie. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to speak with us all. And then last but not least is Ariel Duran, who was a awardee of a Fulbright grant in the 2019-2020 academic year. So just very recently, in which he taught English in Northern Serbia at the University of Novi Sad. Close?
Yeah, that's correct.
In the ballpark? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. He taught economics as well as business students who wanted to develop conversational as well as presentation skills. And of course, because of Northern Serbia's kind of unique geopolitical situation, Ariel had students from Bosnia and Herzegovina, Hungary, as well as from all over Serbia. Ariel is currently a program officer at the U.S. Department of Education and resides in Arlington, Virginia. So thank you to these speakers for your willingness to be here and speak with us about your experiences in Fulbright. And with that, I'll throw it back to Patty so we can get right into those questions.
Thank you so much for that. That was a wonderful introduction to our panelists. So yeah, let's jump right in. We're going to start with the question, how you came to the decision to pursue the Fulbright program. We'd love for you to take us on that journey. So in no particular order, how about we start with Annie? No pressure.
No pressure. So I don't know in terms of how students are feeling who have logged on, but I can assume that many of you might have this, I don't know what I want to do after graduation. And that's where I was at my junior and senior year of college. And so I sat in on an info session such as this, knowing that I wanted to gain experience, not necessarily go right into grad school. And I was particularly drawn to kind of this global engagement opportunity, mainly because of my study abroad and kind of global exposure and experiences while in undergrad. I also was toying around with different options. I wasn't sure if I was ready to commit to 27 months of the Peace Corps, but I knew that 9 months at least with this English teaching assistant grant would give me that understanding of culture and language that I was really interested in learning, and especially gaining those networks within a community that take time, that might take longer than a 2-week, study abroad course. So I was also drawn to Fulbright in particular because of the teaching position. The option to do either research or teaching was really interesting to me, and I had an interest in education, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a classroom teacher. So I was looking at it from a couple of different lenses, and knowing that this teaching position was a little bit more about cultural exchange than it was necessarily testing and teaching by the books. I would make a note that it is a lengthy application process. So that was also part of my experience in terms of like sorting out which of these programs were most important to me, and kind of going through that process helped me really reflect on what it was exactly that I wanted to focus on. So that was kind of part of the decision as well.
Thank you so much for that, Annie. Chris, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I think the reason that I primarily wanted to pursue it was senior year. At the time, I had been a media studies major by the time senior year came around, but I had worked a lot with the faculty over in computer science, specifically working on Shoe Square, and mostly with Dr. McLeod. And so, I had this, he kind of came to me in like August of that year, right before I started, and was like, hey, I know you're interested in traveling. I had actually gone to Germany with Dr. McLeod as well as a bunch of other students to go visit the Game Developers Conference in 2013, so before the program. And so he had known I kind of had liked the idea of traveling and going to Europe, and I had experience at the time going to Europe. And so he's like, do you want to just give it a shot and see if you get it and see what happens? So I had this idea to do a kind of something similar to Shoe Square, but do it in Albania. So create essentially a network, a social network for teachers to be able to just communicate and talk to each other. And so I actually didn't end up doing the teaching end of it. I ended up doing the research end of it, which is funny because I had a lot of good friends who were teachers at the time there, not in Albania, but in like surrounding countries like Kosovo and Montenegro and Croatia and such. So you know, I had a chance to apply for the program as a researcher instead of necessarily as a teacher. Now that actually gave me quite a bit of freedom, I will admit. And I kind of liked that about it, and which is why I applied for that position as opposed to a teaching position, because I was able to you know, do my project, and then also at the same time was able to try different projects, right? And that was something I had in mind, but didn't bring up originally in my application as much. But you know, when I ended up getting there, it was really focused on, you know, I'll finish my project, but at the same time, like making sure to get good photos and travel as much as I can around the country and really learn. Was something that also kind of sparked my original final decision to go. And it kind of, I was kind of, believe it or not, I was kind of torn when I did end up getting it on whether or not to go, because I was about to move to Brooklyn. Like I had a whole plan for doing stuff in film here. And then it kind of just like hit me, and I was like, all right, you know what, why not? I'll just take a risk and go for it. And I would not go back and do it any other way. So it's been great.
Thank you so much for that. Adil, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So for me, I graduated in 2017, and I double majored in religious studies and global studies. And immediately after graduating, I had joined the Peace Corps. So I taught English for 2 years in Kosovo. Now, for anyone who might not be familiar with Kosovo, Kosovo is a majority Albanian country, but there's a small Serbian minority as well. And I happened to be placed in a Serbian minority village. So I was working with the Serbian population in Kosovo already. After 2 years of Peace Corps service, I was just trying to kind of think of what the next step would be. I knew I loved being in the classroom. I kind of developed this passion for education. I really wanted to continue learning the Serbo-Croatian language. So I decided to apply for Fulbright Serbia to teach English. I ended up getting it and teaching, and the opportunity was to teach English in Northern Serbia at the university level. So I kind of saw this as a really good opportunity, because in Kosovo, I was teaching kindergarten through 8th grade. I kind of saw this as a different experience, but still also have the opportunity to continue learning the language, be abroad, and also the Balkan region in general is a pretty fascinating region if for anyone interested in religion as well. So it really seemed like the perfect opportunity for me.
Thank you so much. And Professor Little?
Yeah, actually, like Annie, I actually went to one of these information sessions that was actually for a different scholarship. And when I applied for that scholarship, I failed miserably. And so the person who was helping me with the scholarship said, well, maybe not this one, but have you heard of this thing called Fulbright? And I was like, no, I have not heard of this thing called Fulbright. And it really is a long process. And I think the first thing to figure out is, you know, what are you looking for? Like, do you want to be a teacher? Do you want to be a researcher? And the other thing I would just add to that, I know a bunch of other people have mentioned those two possibilities, but in some Fulbright courses, they actually do let you take classes. In Germany, that was the case. They would let you do research or take classes. So there are various opportunities. And even though I was an independent researcher and I was not teaching, I was able to do language courses, which was a big help. I mean, I had some German as an undergrad, but certainly not very much. So I guess I would just encourage everyone to, you know, even if you just don't be dismissive of a country just because you're worried about the language barrier, explore exactly how that issue would play out in your particular context. Because you might be able to have, you know, get language courses. And I think like others people have said, to actually learn another language would be a big help. And it looks very impressive when you read your resume, even if you don't ever feel fluent, like I never felt fluent, just to have that background.
Thank you very much for that. So the next question I'm going to ask, panelists, feel free to jump in if you feel compelled to answer, but don't feel compelled to answer every single question. And I am going to jump around a little bit, so I apologize if you get dizzy. So do you believe that this experience, your individual experiences, was beneficial to your future professional opportunities? And if so, how was it beneficial?
I'm going to go off of Brent's last comment. In addition to, I think, that language competency, the fact that Fulbright's known for its global exchange as a primary focus. I think that alumni are valued for that cultural competency factor. And so again, looking at kind of marketing yourself to future employers, which is a really important in today's job market, is that intercultural competency. So aside from the networks, and ADL spoke about it during the Peace Corps panel a couple weeks ago, all the networks within that you develop because of these programs, just the very marketable skills that you can kind of put on that resume and talk about in interviews.
Thank you for that, Annie. Go ahead, Chris.
I would say the same thing in a sense where like it's the experience, but it's also and it's the people. But I noticed like going into the working world, it was a lot of it was, this stuff is interesting to people, and employers, right? Employers want to see a diverse background and an interesting background, and the Fulbright would definitely offers that, especially if you get a chance to go to, around the country and really ingrain yourself in the country, and you get to go to the surrounding countries. One thing that I had gotten a lot from it personally was we talk about connections. I mean, like just being able to go across the border into Kosovo for a weekend and see my friends who I had talked to, from that are also in the program. And then now seeing where they are and kind of working with them on certain things and just messaging here and there has been, really helpful, at least for me. And kind of, I floated ideas through them, like current ideas through them in my current role. And I've talked to them about things like that. So it's a really good network to have, but it's also like you make lasting friendships that I think could also, significantly help with things in the future that you don't even think about. I worked on a project a couple of weeks ago that I had one of my friends, Joe, from the program look at, and I hadn't talked to Joe like that probably in a year or two, but he was like, oh yeah, I'll take a look at this, because it was just something that was, in his wheelhouse. And so, and I felt comfortable enough to ask him about it. So I think that's part of it. And then the other side of it is also when you bring this experience forward to an employer, they ask you, okay, well, where'd you go? What did you do when you were there? And just having that background of being able to say, well, I did this, 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 and this specifically, and having evidence of those things really does help, help them look at you as a whole person, as opposed to just someone who is just applying for a job and has, checks all the boxes, right? So I think that was definitely something I noticed. That was.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Students, feel free to chime in if you have specific questions. So this one's a fun one. What were some of the most memorable parts about your Fulbright experience? I'm sure there were so many, so it might be difficult to pick just one.
One thing people sometimes maybe don't realize with the Fulbright is that you sometimes are meeting people from other countries beyond the one you're living in. So for instance, in my case, because even though I was doing independent research, I was technically still a student, and I was living in an international dorm. And if you can imagine, 10 international students all speaking extraordinarily bad and broken German, it was actually a lot of fun. And I could actually communicate better with them than I could with native Germans, simply because the vocabulary was at a lower level. So they spoke more on my comprehension. But it was what I guess what I'm trying to get at is that you do expand your knowledge of that particular country for sure. I mean, my knowledge of Germany is so much greater than it was prior to that. But you also in the process meet students like you, but from other countries. And so you end up meeting people that expanding your global awareness as a whole, especially if you go to a country that, say, that has a lot of diversity within it, or at least the opportunity for that diversity. So that was an unexpected benefit of the Fulbright year. I never would have thought that I would be learning about China while speaking German with a person from China, but I did, or India, or I think we had somebody from Liberia too. So that's just an unexpected joy.
Thank you.
Does it have to be in the country, or could it be outside of the country?
It's however you want to take it, right?
Yeah. So well, I had one of my friends recommend to me when I was there. He's like, he knew I was Catholic, and he's like, you should go to the Vatican for Christmas. And so I was like, all right, I don't know. Like, we only had 14 days of time away from the country that you could take. So I was like, I don't know if I want to like use my time. Like other things I wanted to go do. Like I went to Egypt. There was like little things I wanted to do that like I would have had to shorten the time frame of doing if I could, just based on that. But I was like, all right, why not? I haven't left the country. It's been 3 or 4 months. So I can just give it a shot, So I had no like friends, no contacts, nothing. And I flew to the Vatican and flew to Rome and then got to the Vatican. And I actually almost got there late. But strangely enough, one of my, I was just so like I had gone to my Airbnb and like there was this whole disaster and my guy wasn't there and I was sitting outside and it was cold and miserable. And I had to get to the Vatican and I couldn't get there. But like, and these are experiences that you just cannot have like in the United States. And I'm walking on the street and all I hear is Italian. And like, I know Italian relatively well, but like, I didn't know it like as well as I should have. And I randomly hear English on one corner and I'm like, oh, okay. Like that's like a godsend. So then I went over to him and it was a priest who happened to be a brother. He was in a priest in training essentially. And he was from like Iowa. And so he brought me over to the Vatican, he got me in, he got me all set up. And then I was in line, it just gets crazier. I was in line and I happened to be, at the time I was a film major, I left college as a film major. And there happened to be a Hollywood producer standing right next to me in line. And we had this really good discussion and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it actually led me to Cannes 3 months later. So I got to go to Cannes 3 months later just because I met this random person in line. And then I come to find out like a year later that the priest that helped me actually served in my childhood parish literally that month. So like there was all these weird connections that had happened. And like if I had never gone to Albania and my friend had never suggested that I should check out the Vatican for Christmas, none of this stuff would have ever connected or happened. So definitely a cool experience, I would say.
It's an incredible story. Thank you, Chris. Anybody else? I love that.
I think for me, in the middle of my Fulbright grant, the Bulgarian Fulbright Commission hosted a multi-day media literacy seminar for all of the English teaching assistants across the Balkans. So there are about 31 of us, and we met in Sofia, Bulgaria, to kind of collaborate and brainstorm about how we can kind of focus and teach media literacy in the classroom, both at the university level or the primary school level. And it was a lot of fun, and just kind of meeting other Fulbrighters with similar interests. The U.S. ambassador in Sofia hosted a reception as well. So it was just a great way to connect with people.
And if I can, I'll just round it out by sharing that, being able to experience the culture firsthand and very much community embedded. So my host family made it a point to bring me to, the traditional celebrations and festivals, had gone to more weddings than I've been to here in the States, and kind of being totally immersed and welcomed in that way was really sometimes exhausting, but really eye-opening, and something that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to experience. Wearing a traditional sari and having Nepalese food and dancing and being forced to dance because that's what you do. So it was just very much special to being in the culture.
Thank you so much for that. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question. So, big picture question. So for the students in the audience who are exploring global opportunities, which I'm sure most of them are post-graduation, what is one piece of advice you would offer them that may help support their exploration now? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but what could they be doing now to pursue global opportunities later down the road? Certainly going to an information session like this is a great start, and participating in International Education Week. But more so, you know, should they be connecting with faculty? Should they be pursuing local volunteer opportunities? What should they be doing? Should they be preparing for Fulbright applications if they are planning to pursue it next year right now? Things like that.
So I will say, it depends what year you are, but I actually, I would say get in touch with a professor and try to get a research position in whatever you're doing. You know, when I was a sophomore, one of my buddies went to Yale, and he suggested, he's like, I was just getting into computer science, and he's like, you should just like ask a random professor for a research position. Just go up to a random professor that you know and just be like, hey, can I have a research position? Like, how does this work? And so I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not for sure I'm comfortable. It's a new, like, because I had transfers. I was like, I don't know, it's a new school. And he's like, just do it, just give it a shot, see what happens. So I had done that. And, you know, I had heard that Professor Hume was looking for a research assistant to build Shoe Square. And so I kind of just went through the motions and got to know her and the whole program. And Dr. McLeod helped me kind of do that. And that's how he got me into Fulbright, or like got me towards the Fulbright. But it's all connected to each other. So if you can get that kind of thing under your belt now, and then the one thing I would also say is try to do as many international things as possible. Like, you know, pick up a language app and just play with it for a little while. Just try to figure that out. You know, read some books on like on different cultures and stuff, or from different cultures. You know, one thing I will say is I read a ton when I was in college and still do. And I highly recommend just pick up a book that is from like a foreign author of a country that you're interested in going to and just read it. Like it's not going to take too much time, and it's going to be super interesting. And like that is something that I also felt was extremely valuable. So that's what I would say.
Tremendous advice, especially as these students are approaching a very long winter break.
Yes, hello, this is Wojtek, the Executive Director of the Office of Global Affairs. If I may, just a couple of words regarding what you guys and what you students can do. Well, the Office of Global Affairs has such tremendous variety of opportunities for students in both regular and in the COVID world, that you can get involved with us and through us in so many respects, starting with a, you know, short-term joining a faculty on a study tour, or joining Annie and Arlette on virtual as well as actual volunteer and service learning program activities. Annie, you've mentioned during your presentation that the fact that you studied abroad triggered your interest in Fulbright. I think study abroad and any engagements, both in person, either in person or online, with the stuff that we offer at Sacred Heart International could be definitely a great start. You can always make an appointment with one of us, and we can talk you through all of the opportunities we have in our global campuses, even, you know, Ireland, Luxembourg, but also with our Italian, Greek, Indian, and other partners. There's a whole host of opportunities that we can work with you on. So just my little few words on behalf of Global Affairs. And thank you, by the way, for putting this session together. Good to see you all.
Thank you. Thank you for that advice.
And just to piggyback off of what Dr. Wojtek was saying, I work in the English Language Institute, and we actually have ESL students at Sacred Heart University who are from many of the countries that have either, you know, participants have studied at, or if you have a place in mind that you want to target, you can always stop by or shoot me an email and just let me know, and you can actually, I can put you in touch with one of our students, and you can kind of get a feel for the culture and, you know, kind of have a contact before you go on your program. So that's another opportunity that's available to you here.
Would have never thought of that. That is great. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay, so this is the last piece of the puzzle. We're going to open it up to the panelists. And panelists, feel free to, say anything that you'd like to say about the Fulbright program, its impression that it's left on you, or anything at all, just to wrap up our session today. I'm leaving it very open-ended there.
Just keep an open mind and see where things lead you. I would also just say, to maybe kind of go back to the previous question, is it's a good idea to start exploring the different countries now, because different countries have different requirements. The Fulbright program is not uniformed for every country. So you don't have to make a decision about what you're going to do or where you're going to go, but I would just maybe start exploring, like just start thinking. You might also want to start having that conversation with your parents at some point. I know that was a little awkward in my case. It was a little difficult to convince them, but it is definitely worth doing. Oops, my wife. It is definitely worth doing because this is very important. I mean, it's very important to your development, both intellectually, emotionally, and it's just a wonderful opportunity.
I'd say also to seek out others that have either done it, professors, ask the questions and kind of start reflecting on what is it that you're looking to get out of the experience. As Brent mentioned, they're all a little bit different. So is there a research area that you're looking to do? Are you interested in teaching? Do you have the language? Are you trying to learn the language? Or do you want independent housing? Are you looking to live with host families? Those are all going to very much, dictate what that experience is going to be like. So start kind of with those reflection questions of what you're looking to get out of the experience.
Yeah, I would also.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Yale.
I was just going to quickly add that many of those who did the Fulbright program maintain some sort of blog, like online blog, and publish that website online. So I wouldn't hesitate to kind of seek those blogs out and kind of read what those experiences were like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so I had the research grant, right? So I think part of it is thinking about if that is something you do want to do, think about something you want to make an impact with, and start doing it now, right? So for example, if you want to do something with like clean drinking water, like start doing clean drinking water stuff right now. Like there's nothing stopping you guys from going out and doing this stuff. One thing I do regret in college, I didn't do as much of is this exact thing is, sure, the research position was one thing, but like if there's something you're interested in that you think you want to pursue in a foreign country, start working on it like as soon as you can. Because that'll just set the groundwork for whatever you end up doing, moving forward and what you end up deciding to do for your Fulbright. And I would also say, don't think you can't do it. I think that is something that, a lot of people don't apply for these grants because it's a lot of work. It's not a lot of work comparatively to actually just do the application process, but it is a little bit time consuming, and it is, a little bit tricky in some areas, but it's not anything that none of you guys could, I'm fully confident, be able to do. So I would say just go ahead and just go for it if this is something you're interested in.
This is very inspiring. Thank you. Professor Thompson.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate something that I mentioned in the chat. In case people didn't see it, I included a link to, first of all, the Fulbright website, which is full of an unbelievable amount of material and information. This is the student-specific one. And so you can get a sense of, what the expectation is with the application. There's a lot of questions that are answered there, first and foremost. The kind of the cycle when it comes to Fulbright is one in which the applications open up typically March 31st. Sometimes it varies slightly from that. And the deadline is the middle of October. The date always kind of fluctuates. This year it was October 13th, but it always kind of, so to give you a sense of kind of when the application cycle is. So thinking now is fantastic, and you're thinking ahead. And lastly, I do want to point out that I did call today just to confirm, COVID's really not having an impact in terms of their impact with the application cycle. They believe they're just going to, plow right ahead, if you will, with next year's application cycle being kind of business as normal, relatively speaking, with that March 31st with an opening then and a deadline in the middle of October. But of course, I'm more than happy to speak with anybody who has interest in the program. Folks in the Office of Global Affairs are very happy to speak with you, and Professor McLeod in computer science as well. I just want to re-up his name because he has a track record of great success in helping some of our students get Fulbrights.
Thank you so much for that. That's a perfect wrap up to this session. So for students, I do advise you as a next best step is to reach out to faculty that will support your efforts and start exploring and get curious and use your winter break to your full advantage. And I do see a lot of familiar faces in here of students that are already go-getters. So I know this is the type of group that will forge ahead and really pursue this program. And so I want to take a moment to thank our panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules to come and speak to you all today. So round of virtual applause. And thank you to our students who attended and those who had to jump off at 5 o'clock because they had class. We appreciate all of you so much. And just know that we're here as a support system. Corey and I in the Career Development Center are here to help you with anything you need. And we don't disappear over winter break, so please feel free to reach out at any point. But I'm going to close on that. So thank you all, and it was nice to see you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.